the Healing Through Love podcast with Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson. Discover Mariela Narvaez's inspiring journey on suicide prevention and battling adversity in our latest podcast episode 102.
I came into pageantry really by accident and sometimes an unfortunate event that led me to be a guiding light to others in the darkness. I was a suicide attempt and survived, and I lost my nephew Alan, who we miss dearly and think of him every single day. We lost him in 2021. And this was really the driving force for me to start talking about it, because I had never shared my story. And I told myself, if we can't share, our most weakness, our most vulnerable moments with others, how do we know that others are not experiencing the same? And that's what I realized when I started to share my story and aligned with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and started to collaborate with them in events and, providing information. There's resources, there's numbers. There's now a 988 emergency line in the US, kind of like a 911. I know in different countries it's different things, but at least in the US, they were able to lobby and be able to change this emergency number.
Welcome to another episode of Healing Through Love. Each week, we share ideas, experiences, and resources to increase the awareness of domestic and family violence and to empower survivors to grow and thrive. We talk with experts who share their advice, or with people who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. This is all about healing through love. And now, here are your hosts, Sharlene Lynch and Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to the Healing Through Love podcast, the space where stories, strength, resilience and transformation unfold. I'm your host, Rose Davidson, and I'm honoured to be your guide on this journey of empowerment and healing. Today we have a special episode tailored just for you. Whether you're driving, sipping a cup of tea, or simply taking a moment for yourself, I want you to know that you are in a safe space. Healing Through Love is more than a podcast. It's a community, a beacon of hope, and a reminder that you are never alone. In this episode, our guests will share a story that resonates with the core of our mission, a story that illuminates the power of love, resilience, and the unwavering strength that lies within each of us. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let the healing journey begin. But before we dive into our episode today, just a quick reminder. If you find value in our episodes, consider supporting us by subscribing on YouTube, sharing this episode, and leaving a review. Your engagement helps us reach more hearts and spread the message of healing. Today, my guest is Mariela Narvaez. I'm sorry, I've got that wrong, but I'm sure she'll correct me afterwards. We did practice it before, and it's completely gone out of my mind. Now, Mariela is going to talk to us about suicide prevention and sexual harassment. And in America, there are over 130 suicides occurring every day, and there are 1 million attempts annually. And Mariela has actually survived a suicide attempt, and she wants to share with us her journey through that dark time for her. Now, Mariela is an author. She's a bilingual speech, language and pathologist, and she's also an intuitive. She was crowned Miss Illinois International in 2022, Miss Illinois USA Universe in 2023, and Miss USA Universe Global in 2023, and she will be competing in the Miss Universe title in Miami this August. So welcome, Mariela. Thank you for joining us today, and I'm looking forward to hearing about your journey from your darkness to the light now that you bring to the world.
Yes, thank you so much for having me in this beautiful space. Just this this topic alone, healing through love, is really what I feel happened to me. So this is just aligning so beautifully. So yes, my name is Mariela Narvaez, and it's a hard last name. Trust me, even my kids can't say it sometimes because it's a Spanish name, and my kiddos are half white, so I had them practice too. But all jokes aside, I came into pageantry really by accident and sometimes an unfortunate event that led me to be a guiding light to others in the darkness. I was a suicide attempt and survived, and I lost my nephew Alan, who we miss dearly and think of him every single day. We lost him in 2021. And this was really the driving force for me to start talking about it, because I had never shared my story. And I told myself, if we can't share, our most weakness, our most vulnerable moments with others, how do we know that others are not experiencing the same? And that's what I realized when I started to share my story and aligned with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and started to collaborate with them in events and, providing information. There's resources, there's numbers. There's now a 988 emergency line in the US, kind of like a 911. I know in different countries it's different things, but at least in the US, they were able to lobby and be able to change this emergency number, because 911, we know it's an emergency for specifically, but we needed something that was specific for mental health in that moment where you have seconds perhaps to save a life. And in my work, it was a lot of pain, because I had to relieve my own darkness when I was in a toxic marriage, and I had 3 kids at the time. And it was probably my most darkness moment, to where I thought I would, took pills and I thought I would just die. And, lo and behold, I woke up in a hospital. Then I was, obviously they take you for preventative measures to a medical facility. And I think that was just my turning point into, I could not have believed that, a once very positive and person, always, giving love and light, to have reached such a point. And unfortunately, sometimes darkness happens to us. There's, but with stressors and losing jobs and just relationships and mental health, and a lot of us are going through it. And the thing is, and we don't reach out for help. And I didn't, even though I have a twin sister, she knew there were some things, but I was like, oh, I'm busy. Just, you try to push people away, and to where nobody was around in that moment, and the most vulnerable moment in my life. And so fast forward to 2021, after a lot of my healing, of course, and ended up, divorcing. And now I'm, single mom with 3 beautiful children. And they too understand that we were better, separated, because there's so much peace. And we each leading different lives, but in a peaceful and loving, positive atmosphere. So that kind of brought me to started talking about suicide. And then a pageant system reached out to me, and I had never thought myself of being a queen or going through pageantry. And as I was sharing, I'm only 5'2", and aside from wearing these 6-inch heels, I'm still the shortest queen ever. So I didn't think that this is something that I needed to do, and I was still healing, and I didn't care about competing in a pageant. But this pageant director who I had met and talked to her, and she too had a very dark past in childhood. And she said, Mariela, you will have a bigger platform and more people to reach, because you'll be on TV, on radio, and all that. I was like, well, yeah, but I need to win first. So standing in that stage, I had no idea what I was doing. I felt like I was Miss Congeniality in this, world that I was just very familiar. But, I just thought, okay, I'll just be myself. I always believe in that, and just share my story. And on that stage, I remember I had practiced like the speech 100 times. And of course, in that moment that I shared my story, I cried and I wept, but it came from my heart. And you could hear just like a pin drop in the room. Like everybody was silent. And then something happened. Like, I just remember a moment where I felt like other people felt, or they had gone through the same thing, because there were smiles, there was like claps, and I can't explain how the power of a moment, right? And I thought I was going to lose. I was like, there's no way. I just cried, and they tell you to be, stay in posture and all this. And I was not, but I felt like I got the crown because it was a story that was true, and it came from my heart. And I'm, not trying to do this to, to pose and, take pictures. No, I really was, I'm still am, with a crown, without a crown. I didn't care if I didn't win. I'm going to continue to do this work for as long as I live, because I know that if we save one life, all this work was worth it. Because my nephew's life, which is one person, it affected 150 people. That's one on average. It's like a domino effect. It's family, it's community, it's, and that's what happened with my nephew. It destroyed us. And, but as a family, we have shifted and changed because we were in a very secret. We don't say anything. We don't talk about things. We didn't know he had mental health. Just as me, everything was fine. And it happens with a lot of families. It's not just Latinos, and it's a lot of minorities. But I know it's still in the European also. And so, I'm so sorry. So, unfortunately, we as a family had to heal. We all went, different type of therapy. We did retreats, and we healed from within. And we understood that sometimes we are going through things, and it was better to be truthful and see how we could be there for one another, because we realized in that moment that we were all going through a lot of dark things, and we were pretending like everything was okay. So we had to normalize not being okay, normalize that, we're going through things, and sometimes there's my mental health diagnosis, and it doesn't mean that we're a less of a human, or if you're bipolar, or if you just have depression, clinical depression, or if anything. All that matters is that we are accepting each other and loving towards each other, and see how we can be there for each other, rather than judging or, oh, how could you do this? And unfortunately with my nephew, we found out after he died that he did have different mental diagnoses, bipolar. And also he had tried an attempt twice before this one. So, that left us with, with hoping or wondering what could we have done. If I would have known, right, I would have called, I would have done this. And the crazy thing is this, I was there. We were in the house when it happened. It was my sister and her family. It was supposed to be a weekend. We all went away to St. Louis, and it was a family event. And it happened like in a second. And it was weird because I just had a feeling, as I'm intuitive, I was trying to because I knew something was off, and and I was trying to follow him around. But again, like he was at a point where like he, in a moment where he was so dark, and all I could say is like, Alan, just know that we love you. And if you're going through anything, we're here. And within 10 minutes, he was gone. So in a way, I'm glad I told him that, because, in a way, I felt like I said goodbye, but that was never my intention, right? But in that last moment, of course, it's one of those moments that I keep replaying in my mind. I'm like, I should have just pulled him, or, but of course, you never know that he was going to do this, right? He was himself in a toxic marriage. He went outside, started fighting with the wife, and then he found a gun, and, all this. It's almost like the worst movie that you could ever live in. We were living it in that moment. And so, of course, it changes you. And my children as well, my own daughter went into a, outpatient mental services, because like a program, because she herself started being suicidal, because of course she was very close to her cousin. And when you live trauma that way, she started to spiral, and everybody handled it in a different way. And unfortunately with my daughter, because we knew all this, and because I was working, I was just like, no, we gotta she had to leave school and focus 100% on her healing. But sometimes we have to do that, and it's okay. And I want people to know it's okay if you need a month off and from work or from wherever. And now they have wonderful programs. My niece, who is Lexi, is a sister of Alan, my nephew. She herself is working for Charlie Health, which is a mental health, mental support type of organization, where it's programmed, but it's not an inpatient. You can continue to live your life, and you can work and go to school and whatnot. But it's a lot of Zoom, and there is longer times, and every day very intensive for our different scenarios or different situations that we're living in. And that way we don't have to leave, because some of us still have to work, right? Some of us still have kids, and how do we handle all this? And so there's a lot of support and organizations that are assisting people who are going through this. And again, it's okay. Let's walk each other home. Let's be there for one another and heal through love. Definitely.
Yeah, sometimes, Mariela, it's hard for the person who is in the dark place to recognize that they are in that dark place. And sometimes, they don't see any other way out than not being, to unalive. So they say, have thoughts of being unalive, and, thoughts of, that the world is better off without them. And through all of the traumas and things that are happening in the world at the moment, it is quite hard for people in that dark place to see light at the end of that horrible, horrible tunnel. So, what can they do, when they're in this dark space to recognize that they actually do need help before they come to that crucial decision?
Yes. And I've made a lot of posts about this, because I've even had people say, because of your post, I ended up not taking my life. And to me, that's why I post, and that's why I do all these things, because sometimes it's about identifying that you yourself are, deciding or thinking, I don't matter. And you do. Everybody matters, whether we realize it or not, And I know some people's lives are very difficult. They're going through trauma, going through abuse. I mean, I've seen it all. Kind of interesting enough, the sexual harassment platform is because I was so tied to, I've been sexually harassed since I was 12. And so when you live through different things, there's a point where you just think, I mean, enough is enough. There's too much pain. I'd rather just not feel anymore. And I know a lot of people get to that point and don't recognize that, we have a choice, right? We always do. And, to me, it was obviously, it was a saving grace that I survived, obviously, because I could have not been here today. And I always tell people, because especially the people that lose people, through suicide, they think, oh, they're cowards, or, but actually trying to attempt, it's probably the most difficult thing that you're, doing, but you're thinking that other people are going to be better without you, and you're the problem, and we're not. And I always just say, love yourself first. Like, even if there's spouses or boyfriends or partners or friends, and maybe it's not the people that we need to be around to start off, because if we're already feeling bad in those energies, maybe that's an indicator that maybe it's those type of people. And sometimes it's better to be alone, or with one or two friends, but that are loving and supportive, than be with the wrong people. And I've learned that through my life. So I've kind of cut a lot of people in my life, but because I've learned that now, boundaries and what is healthy for me. But as we're going through that, sometimes just being alone is terrifying, and you're like, you're already going through these things, but it's just knowing that you are worthy, that you are loved no matter what, and that you do deserve to be here no matter what has happened, because sometimes we define ourselves through our past, through our action, what has happened to us, rather than who we are within our soul. And what's in our soul, it's an eternal, beautiful being full of light and love, that we deserve to be here in light, not live in darkness. And so it's about a choice of, maybe, that's why I say, if you identify with any of these signs, which, obviously, realizing that you don't matter, or maybe it's better, that the world is better without you. No, like, there's just these thought processes that we go through, when we're in these very, very dark times, that, that unfortunately we end up believing, so a lot of the people think that this is the only way out. No, there is another way out. And it's the light. It's through love, and it's through healing, which is even harder. I get it, because healing is a very long process, and you have to go back and look at things from your past, from your childhood, that have hurt you, that have put you probably in a state that we just want to forget. But I do feel like if we recognize that, call a friend, call a counselor, get on therapy, call the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in the US. I know there's different organizations throughout the world, and call 988, just, it's a text, just call them, and someone will be there on the line, and at least guide you in the proper directions, because our lives are so precious, and they're so fragile. And but what we don't realize is the aftermath of when these beautiful people, these beautiful souls, end up departing too early, and not knowing they could have had a longer life. Like my nephew was 27, barely starting, his life. And it left a hole. Like, my sister will never be the same, as a mother, losing a child this way, it just changes you. And even though she's healing and she's done a beautiful job every single day, I know she cries and, you will never stop missing those beautiful people that end up, like I said, leaving too soon. So it's just a reminder. And for most of us, all of us, really, to just be okay with reaching out, because we're so busy in our lives. And that's another thing that's red flags. Like, pay attention to your kids, to your friend, there's certain markers that I've noticed, because we're too busy and we're like, oh, I'll call them later, I'll text. No, if you notice something right then and there, do it. It has saved lives. And it doesn't take but just a few minutes. We all have, I get it, we're all so busy. But that's another thing I've noticed with talking through people who have lost, they're like, I knew there was something. I should have done, and the should have, could have, would have, it unfortunately does not bring that person back. All we can learn is from act on your intuition, act on those feelings, pay attention. And I'm very close to my kids, to my friends, and we have a truthful bond. I'm like, I'd rather know it than find out. And I'm not one to like, I'm like, we'll figure it out. And they're like, and they really, it's kind of amazing. My kids tell me everything, whether they made mistakes. I'm like, I'm not judging you. You're going to learn, right? This is learning. This is how you learn to be an adult. It's better to make mistakes now than when you're 30. And because sometimes as parents, we don't even allow our kids to make mistakes. But I'm not, I want to say I discipline with love. I am a little strict in some things, but when it comes to the big life lessons, I'm like, there's nothing you will tell me that will make me push you away, that you are not unworthy. We'll figure it out, because I feel like in my own growing up, everything had to be hidden. I couldn't tell my mom anything because she would chew my head off. Sorry, mom, I love you, but she knows. We were all raised this way. So I prefer to know the truth and tell them the truth, because again, we're not perfect. I was never a perfect parent. I wish they give us a manual, right? But we just go, as we just maneuver, in our own way. And I just knew I had to do things differently as how I was raised. And I just knew, love and light, but also you have to just, guide. And, I do, like I said, have to take phones away and, grounded them for different things. But the most important thing was, for me, I always had to be truthful about my life, about the mistakes. And of course, you don't tell them everything, but, at least to know that we all learn this way and it's okay. Right. So with that in mind, they come in after a party or like, mom, this happened or that happened, or, and sometimes my, my friends are like, they're like, man, your kids are really close to you. I'm like, well, because I had to do it this way. I don't want to lose them. I don't want to, and because of that communication, I feel like I know them now, right? If there's a little shift here, and especially my daughter, because she does go up and down with her depression. I want to say she has to go back like every January. She was this January, February, she had to go back to intensive therapy. And unfortunately it's I can't even like get her out of bed to go to school. So, it's been a rough journey, healing is, but we take every day as a time, and as a parent, as a friend, as a sister, as a, mother, as a, partner, really get to know these people in our lives, because those connections will, help, us all. Because if we're more compassionate, and the world was just more compassionate, I feel like we would just be more, there would be less of this darkness, and I feel like if you give love, like if you're with me for 5 minutes and you don't leave feeling my love, then I did something wrong. And I feel like if we all do that, more people will feel like maybe, oh, there is hope. And that's why when I'm in the streets, I smile at everybody. I talk to everybody. My kids are like, mom, can we go to the store and you not talk to someone random in the store? And I'm like, I can't promise you that, because I feel like even a smile will change someone's life. And I feel like, if we just give a little more love and give a little more light every single day, it's a domino effect, right? We're not going to change the world, all at once, but I feel like if it's a little shift to, into just being humans and allowing ourselves to just, change. Change starts from within and then without, right? So just little things we can do that I've just noticed have, changed within my own family. And is it perfect? No, we still struggle. We have highs and lows, and it's life, right? That's that's what life is all about, right? It's a journey. But more than anything is that we just have to do this together and just be supportive, like care to where because you never think, oh, it's not going to happen. But that's what we thought. I thought, oh, and it can, and it happened to me, and it really, really can. So never think it won't happen, because just like all those tragic stories that we read about, it does come true.
Mariela, you've got a book out. It's called Starseed. Where can people find that?
Oh, yes. So you can find me on Amazon and either in my publishing house, but I love Amazon because you can find all my books there. I have keto books as well. I love nutrition. I almost became a nutritionist, but my love has been speech pathology. So I feel like and then psychology. I started in psychology. So I feel like I can have a PhD right now. I changed degrees several times. But yes, the Starseed, and it's very interesting because I wrote this book when the main character is my daughter, and then the supporting actors are my kiddos. So my kids were actually the inspiration for this series, and it's really about embracing who you are, breaking the mold. Because when I was growing up as an intuitive, I feel like someone just dropped me on this planet, and I and I had to defend by myself. I could just sense things and read things, and people were just like weird to me. I'm like, they were rude and they just had an agenda. And I just come with unconditional love. And people were like, what's wrong with you? I just felt like I didn't belong here. So for that purpose, I wrote this book. And it was really for my daughter because I started to identify the same traits as I did as a kid. So I wrote this for her, not knowing that it would become this book series about all of us just being who we are, and some of us are painters and actors and writers and musicians and doctors, and we have gifts. And obviously it's star seeds, right? It's like we are pieces of stars, right? And we really are as unique as stars because we are all part of a collective universe. And when we embrace who we are within and whatever it is that we come here on earth, and not listening to your parents and society, what is your mission here? What are you coming here to do? And I feel like if we really are honest with ourselves, because sometimes we try to do what other people want, or to make our parents happy, but when we're truly unapologetically ourselves, we follow our true soul's true path. And that's what I did, and I've done many crazy things. Well, not crazy, but they're like, you have done like a lot of things. And I'm even an actor, and I do actings and projects and things like that, but I'm very creative as well. So I just kind of like have done the things that in my heart, in my soul, just they fulfill me. And it's my passion. And so with that in mind, this book series is about that, breaking the mold. Of course, these kids have powers and they go through wormholes and go through different star systems and the Pleiades. It's kind of like a Star Wars meets Twilight and like Harry Potter all in one. But it's very spiritual because it's about really tapping with your soul's true purpose and your true self, which is our highest version of ourselves. So really leading our own truth and being you. And because I always say, if I'm never going to change for anybody else. I learned that the hard way with being with a person that just wanted me to be a specific way, and I was like, no, I'm always going to be me, and the right people will come to me. I will attract my soul tribe, and I have. And that's the most beautiful thing with all of my quirkiness and my anomalies and all of my likes and my, degrees and, all of my projects that I have and what I do. The right people will love you for who you are, and you don't have to change, and you shouldn't have to. That's another thing. We just have to be, proud of ourselves and not want to be like the neighbor or that person. I just want to be better than who I was yesterday, and that's the only competition I have. And I even have a twin, and we don't even compete it like that. We both have different paths.
Mariela, it's been an absolute pleasure. If you want to reach out to Mariela, you can find her on her website. You can find her through her books. You can find her on Instagram and Facebook and on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your journey with us today, Mariela.
Thank you.
It's been enlightening, and I'm sure that any of us that are feeling in that little dark space, that they can gain some inspiration from your journey. And please, people, don't be afraid to reach out if you are feeling that that you aren't coping with life anymore. Reach out to somebody. It doesn't have to be a family member. It doesn't have to be a friend. It doesn't have to be anyone that you know. Even reaching out to a stranger, ring a helpline. Go and see your GP. Go and seek that help, because you are worthy. You are wanted. It may not feel like it, but you really are. And please just reach out, because you deserve to be here just like anybody else does, and it doesn't matter what you're going through. Just find that little spark of courage in you to reach out. Thank you so much, Mariela, and
Thank you
and
for having
I
me.
look forward to talking with you again sometime in the future.
Definitely. And definitely check out my my website if you never ever need help with any of these resources. You can contact me, and I'm happy to help and direct you in the right direction.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Love and light.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Healing Through Love. You can get further resources, see the show notes, or simply reach out to us via our website at htlaustralia.org. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to your company next time on the Healing Through Love podcast.